Well, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Saudi Arabia for talks on Israel's war on Gaza. He will be discussing efforts to secure a ceasefire and more aid deliveries to the Strip. This is his sixth tour of the region since October. He's expected to head to Egypt and Israel next for more talks. Let's bring in Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bishara. Let's start with Blinken's visit. His sixth visit to the region since October. Does he genuinely believe that he can make any difference, given what he's achieved so far, which is nothing?
You know, you wonder, right? One wonders, because on the one hand, one can see how the United States, the Biden administration, is kind of playing it both ways, trying to have its cake and eat it too. It's both trying to maintain some distance from the Netanyahu government while providing unconditional support to the Israeli government. So you can see that they are sort of playing it both ways, and it's important to continue to play the diplomatic card, because that helps deflect from the real tragedy that's unraveling in Gaza. So perhaps that is the task. The task is not to save the people in Gaza. The task is to save the United States from complicity being known as, the verdict being that the United States is complicit in genocide in Gaza.
You said deflect, but deflect for who? Because it's really interesting. I get a sense that every time the US tells the Israelis off anything, the worse the situation gets in Gaza.
This is the thing, right? So we have here in the studio and inside in the room, in the office, you know, a number of screens. If you watch international media, especially Western media, they're talking about how the Biden administration is trying to boost aid to the poor Palestinians. Then you would watch them, Cameron and BBC saying how wonderful, you know, the UK role is in trying to establish a two-state solution somewhere down the road, while doctors are being killed in Gaza, while children are being killed in Gaza. So you have these Western officials, notably the Americans, continue to talk about stuff, right? Diplomacy, humanitarian aid, Israel is doing its best, it's not doing its best, the Israeli government, not the Israeli government, while children are dying, while people are dying of starvation, while more women, more doctors, more nurses, more teachers, more academics continue to die in Gaza. So while the Western media is busy talking about diplomatic this and that, and this initiative and that initiative, and this captive, that captive, we've been busy for 5 months talking about 100+ captives in the hands of Hamas, while every day some 100 people are killed by Israel, if not more, right? So it definitely helps. This kind of diplomatic circus helps the United States and Israel deflect from the real tragedies on the ground. Even you and I here, we are talking about Blinken.
We
right?
are.
So, but we are smart enough, I hope everyone else could be smart enough to always mention, underline, right, emphasize the fact that while these people are trying to waste our time, in fact, people are dying. Famine is not something at the brink of happening. It has happened. It's a state of famine. As Josep Borrell himself, the EU foreign policy chief, has underlined just the day before yesterday. So, in fact, the tragedy continues to unravel in plain sight. It is on the TV screens. But Western diplomats, basically on behalf of Israel, right, continuously try to defend the Israeli line, repeat the Israeli sound bites on Western TV screens, so that the West continues to provide support to Israel while maintaining some kind of a distance from Israel.
I also wanted to touch on what's going on at al-Shifa hospital. So little information coming out from there. It is, I believe, day 4 of an Israeli raid on the hospital. Marwan, I wonder if we should remind our audience, you know, that this is the first hospital that was raided back in October. Why are the Israelis back here again? And
2014 and 2009, there's a whole memory, right? So this war started, and it's good to remind people around the world, our viewers around the world, about how this was supposed to be on top of multi-layer, multi-level Hamas headquarters, right? where all the operation, the world terror, right, was really being designed and engineered from there. Turned out there's nothing, absolutely nothing. Okay, so what's happening today is worse than what happened back then. And what happened back then was already tragic, awful, criminal, a war crime, and so on and so forth. Because Israel was still working on some assumption that some were, some perhaps convinced of that they could probably find something. They didn't find anything. 5 months later, they continue to attack. And the way they're attacking the doctors and the nurses is a thing I would like to, for us to stop and think about. I think there's a special place in hell for people who abduct and kill doctors and torture doctors. Because these people, amongst all of us, they are the ones who are saving lives. To kill people who are saving lives, you definitely have a special place in hell. So there's an Israeli government that is deliberately attacking hospitals, attacking doctors who are trying to save lives. Now, under what pretense? I think they basically run out of pretenses, right? So now they say anything that's associated or smells like someone is perhaps the relative of someone that worked for Hamas or worked in the health ministry or anything of that nature, which is by every single definition a war crime. Israel continues to commit war crimes in daylight, right, in plain sight, on TV screens. And what Dr. Mads told us in his own private conversation with people, with doctors in the hospital, which is, I believe, 100% to be trustworthy, underlines the fact that Israel can continue to do that because if you were in Israel's position, the world continues to talk and does nothing. It continues to warn Israel, don't do that, and Israel does it, and nothing happens. Then why shouldn't Israel continue to do what it's doing and run away with it, get away with it, with total impunity? Because the world continues to warn and does absolutely nothing. It's a total betrayal of human rights, of universal values, and of every value of decency that we know of.
Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bishara, thank you.